Looking for the latest comic book to add to your collection? How about the last card for that Magic the Gathering Commander deck? Well, the comic book stores got you covered. Shop online at comicbookstore.tcgplayerpro.com or come in person at 30 North Main Street, Glassboro, New Jersey. Pizza people, welcome back. We actually have a really awesome grindy deck for you today. This was actually a deck that you saw on our channel as well, played by TheDarkStream during our streamer Showdown. So if you haven't already, definitely check out that video. You're going to see it here pop up on the screen, and there's going to be a link down below in the description. So today we're going to be playing Grixis Despair. So what the deck's mostly trying to do is just accrue a ton of value with all the 2-for-1s or 3-for-1s that the deck contains in it, and then kind of finish the game off with either, just some pretty decent sizable bodies like Trespassers, Corpse Appraisers, or maybe even just finish the game big with an Invoke Despair. So let's go ahead and go over the deck list here. So in our 1-drop slot, we have first card here, we have Rona's Vortex. It's 1 blue. You can kick it, so 2 colorless and a black. Return to a creature or planeswalker you don't control to its owner's hand. If it was kicked, put that permanent on the bottom of its owner's library instead. So just a really phenomenal card overall. It's an instant. It can bounce anything that your opponent pretty much has, creature or planeswalker, which are 2 pretty powerful permanents. And then on top of that, if you end up kicking it, it kind of almost just gets rid of it outright at instant speed. We have 3 cut downs for anything that's going to be an aggressive deck, or anything that's pretty much playing smaller type creatures. 1 black, instant, destroy target creature with total power and toughness 5 or less. I think cut down's pretty good. There's definitely some matchups where it's not as powerful and you want to cut down on them, but I think having 3 main deck definitely helps against the variety of the format. We also have 1 of Voltage Surge here, which is just another great removal spell at the 1-drop. Definitely a flexible card. So 1 red instant as an additional cost to cast a spell. You can sacrifice an artifact. If you do, instead of dealing the 2 damage that it would normally deal, it deals 4 instead. So pretty much a shock, and then later on you can actually turn it into a 4 damage spell, and that's actually going to kill most of the things in the format, and it's an instant, so can't really go wrong with this card. It's been kind of a little bit on the decline, but for a while now, this was definitely a card that was like super hot and just a really efficient removal spell at 1 red mana, and potentially just second like a treasure. In our 2-drops here, to start it off, we've got 2 Make Disappears. This is actually the only main deck. This is the other main deck counterspell besides the Earth Tide that we'll get to here in a moment. So, colorless and a blue instant, casualty 1, so you can sacrifice a creature power 1 or greater when you cast a spell. If you do, you get to copy it. So it's going to be counter target spell unless controller pays 2. So early on, just a nice little mana leak type effect, and then later in the game, you can actually sacrifice potentially like a Tenacious Underdog or something else that you got laying around that you don't mind sacrificing, and then it ends up potentially countering a spell unless they pay 4 additional. We also have 2 Infernal Grasp, so colorless and a black instant, destroy target creature. You lose 2 life, just a great catch-all removal spell. Ever since it's been printed, kind of just been shown off in like a lot of different decks. We have 1 Tenacious Underdog, colorless and a black for a 3/2 Human Warrior. It has Blitz, so you can play it from your hand for its Blitz cost for 2 colorless, 2 black, and you pay 2 life. And then it has haste, and when it dies, essentially you'll get to draw a card. And then the special ability on this is you can actually Blitz it from your graveyard. So it's going to be a nice little recursive threat. It has haste when you blitz it, and on top of that, it keeps generating cards. So if you're at a high enough life total, you're going to want to be pretty much underdogging almost every turn if that's what you have the best use of your mana for. I really like this card. It comes down early, it blocks great, and it even attacks better. We also have 4 Blood Tithe Harvester, a card that you're definitely going to see quite a lot in these Rakdos essentially based decks, splashing for other colors. Any type of black based strategy that plays red, or even most of the mono black decks have almost turned into just Rakdos, because this is one of the cards that you kind of want to have as like a payoff for that. So red black 3/2, whenever this card enters the battlefield, you get a blood token. You can tap, sacrifice it, target creature gets -X until end of turn, where X is twice the number of blood tokens you control, but you can only activate this as a sorcery. So you get a blood token. These are really great later in the game when you're just top decking lands. On top of that, Blood Tithe Harvester itself can essentially kill anything that's 2 toughness with the first one. If you have more blood on the battlefield, then you can start to kill some really big things. We also have 2 Reckoner Bankbuster main deck, so 2 colorless, 4/4 vehicle. It comes into play with 3 charge counters on it. You can pay 2 colorless tap to remove a counter from this card to draw a card. Then, when there's no charge counters on it, you get to create a treasure token and a 1/1 colorless pilot token with this creature crews vehicles as though its power were 2 greater, so the token ends up crewing the Bankbuster. This card is just great. You play it early, you just draw a bunch of cards, and then essentially end up drowning your opponent in value. When your opponent has it, you feel pretty bad knowing that they're just going to keep redrawing a lot of cards and finding answers for what you have. So I think Bankbuster is really, really phenomenal right now in the metagame because a lot of decks are pretty much just trying to be mid-rangey and grindy. And Reckoner Bankbuster definitely fills that role where not only it does it draw cards, but it's a 4/4 attacker. Just a really solid card overall. We also have 4 Graveyard Trespassers, 2 colorless and a black. We already know how powerful this card is, Human Werewolf. It has Ward, so if your opponent essentially targets a card, they have to discard a card in order to kill it. Whenever this card comes into play or attacks, you get to exile a target card from a graveyard if it's a creature card. Your opponent loses a life and you gain a life, and then the Graveyard Glutton essentially turns into a 4/4. We get to exile 2 cards, and then if they're creatures, they lose 2 and you gain 2. We also have 4 Fable of the Mirror Breaker here. This is a card that everybody should know about in Standard already. 2 colorless red Saga. First chapter, you get a 2/2 Goblin token. Whenever it attacks, you get a treasure. Second chapter, you can discard up to 2 cards and redraw that many. And then third chapter, you exile it and it comes back into play as Reflection of Kiki-Jiki. A colorless tap, create a token that's a copy of another target non-legendary creature you control, except it has haste. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. This card's definitely just defining Standard right now, and there's just so many cards in the deck that you get tons of value from, like Corpse Appraisers, Graveyard Trespassers, Blood Tithe Harvesters, anything like that. Just a pretty crazy card right now. We also have 4 Corpse Appraisers that we've already mentioned, a blue, black, and a red, 3/3. When it comes in, you can exile up to 1 target creature card from a graveyard. And then if that card is put in exile this way, look at the top 2 cards of your library, then put one of them in your hand, and the rest go to your graveyard. So really powerful card right now, as you're able to disrupt some graveyard strategies, like anything that's a reanimation type effect, or the fact that there's other underdogs as well. Could be in opposing decks, and this card is just going to get rid of those right away. So between this and the Graveyard Trespasser, you already have tons of graveyard hate, and I really like that. On top of that, Corpse Appraiser kind of just ends up being like this really powerful value card where it just replaces itself and it has a pretty decent sized body. For our 4-drops here, we have 1 Shieldred, the Apocalypse, 2 colorless, 2 black for a 4/5 Death Touch. Whenever you draw a card, you gain 2 life. Whenever an opponent draws a card, they lose 2 life. So super powerful card, pretty absurd. It just sits on the battlefield. If your opponent doesn't deal with it, it can just win the game by itself, and it goes vice versa. If your opponent has it and you can't deal with it, then it's going to feel pretty bad knowing that every single turn you're going to lose 2 life, and your opponent's going to slowly start to gain more life as well, and the game kind of starts to get out of hand at that point. We have 2 Urtime Resurrected. This is definitely a card that's been showing up in quite a few different types of decks. 2 colorless, blue, black for a 3/2 legendary creature. It has Flash. Whenever it comes into play, you get to choose up to 1. Counter target spell, activated ability or triggered ability. Destroy another target creature or planeswalker, and then essentially they would draw a card for whatever permanent you're destroying, or if you destroy your own stuff, you'll get to draw a card. So a lot of different applications for this card. One of my favorite things to do is essentially use it to counter one of the chapters from a saga. Can be pretty devastating, so really powerful card overall. Sometimes your opponent just redrawing the card doesn't matter as much, but that's definitely going to be something that you're going to be looking out for, especially if, let's say, your opponent's already ahead. Then Urtai is going to be a lot harder to cast. And in our top end here, we're playing for Invoke Despair. If you don't know what this card is, it's definitely super powerful. It does quite a lot for the mana cost. So 1 black, or excuse me, 1 colorless, quadruple black for a sorcery. Target opponent sacrifices a creature. If they can't, they lose 2 life and you draw a card. Then you do the same thing for an enchantment and a planeswalker. So sometimes this card can just be a 3-for-1. It's actually mostly a 3-for-1 all the time, because you can get rid of the permanents that your opponent has on the battlefield, or they'll end up losing 6 life and you draw 3 cards if they actually have nothing going on. So there's some games where you'll just cast 2 of these and the game kind of just ends. Just a super powerful card right now in Standard. For lands, we actually have a few special ones. We're rocking the one of Otawara, Takanuma, and Sekenzen. We also have the 4 Xander's Lounge, which you would normally expect, but we actually have 1 Rafine's Tower to actually be able to help us give us some better late game as we're able to cycle it away. In our sideboard here, we have an extra Voltage Surge for anything that's going to be like a quick type strategy, or like I said earlier, you can also still get rid of things that have 4 toughness just because you're able to sacrifice an artifact. You can have Bank Busters, Treasures, anything like that, are just definitely going to be a big help. 3 Disdainful Strokes for the mid-range matchup or control matchup, where you know they're going to be bringing in some more of their higher cost cards like Wandering Emperors, Storm the Festivals, anything like that. We have 2 Negates to counter anything that's going to be like a non-creature type spell. Really good once again against like mid-range strategies, control strategies, anything like that. Pretty well custom to negate at this point. An extra Shieldred in case we do end up needing to grind the game out. This is just a fantastic card where you just play it, like I said, and it just takes the game over by itself. An extra Infernal Grasp just as an additional catch-all type removal effect. One of a Braid as a removal for a creature, or even destroying opposing bank busters is really, really phenomenal with this. Same with like destroying a hearse, anything like that. Just really strong card right now. One of Bankbuster kind of helps fill out here to make a third one in the main deck to give you that extra card advantage in the mid-range grindy matchups. One of Hearse is kind of just like a catch-all type graveyard effect, graveyard hate effect, excuse me. Kind of helps add on to what Graveyard Trespasser and Corpse Appraiser are already doing. And on top of that, your opponent needs an instant speed removal spell to kill it. If it starts to be like a 4/4/6/6 and all they're really playing are damage spells, then this card can definitely start to take over the game just by attacking. It's just like this huge threat and being a hateful card as well. 2 Soul Transfers, just a card that we've been seeing get played a lot more in Standard. Normally a Hero's Downfall effect doesn't seem as powerful, but the fact that you actually get to exile the creature or Planeswalker, and if you have an artifact or enchantment, as you cast it, you actually get to return a creature card or Planeswalker as well from your graveyard to your hand, so you're able to just get tons and tons of value from this. Really, really strong removal spell. 2 Ob Nixilis help round out the sideboard here. You're going to use these against control matchups primarily. Maybe some mid-rangey matchups that you kind of view a little bit more as controlling, where this is just going to be a card that you're going to get down early by sacrificing a Tenacious Underdog or a Bloodtithe Harvester. Then all of a sudden you have 2 Planeswalkers down, and you're definitely draining and diminishing your opponent's resources. So just a really powerful card overall. I think when this card first came out, it wasn't played as much, but I think it's definitely getting played a lot more. In a lot of different like Explorer main decks and in Standard as well. Sometimes you'll see it main deck in like the Anvil deck. And a lot of these red-black decks play in the sideboard because it's just really, really strong against control. Overall, I had a blast playing this deck. I think it's really great for grinding on ladder, and I actually think this is one of the best decks in the format. So I 100% recommend bringing a deck like this to a tournament that I'm going to be hosting. Speaking of, we have a Standard tournament this Saturday. It's free to play, so definitely get in on that. There's going to be a link down below in the description. Let's jump into some games. Playing some Grixis here on the ladder. Let's see if we can grind our opponents to dust here and rank up at the same time. Looks like we're going to be on the draw to start this match. And I actually think our hand's really good. We have a pretty good curve out. And we also have Invoke Despair for the top end here. And it actually looks like we're up against Riveteer's deck, Jund. So they could end up having some kind of reanimation, so we may almost want to pocket this Graveyard Trespasser for when their creatures actually do hit the graveyard. Opponent does have a pretty good start here with a Bloodtithe Harvester. I think we'll go ahead Sulphurous Springs into this Reckoner Bankbuster and pass the turn back. And let's see what they're up to. Definitely going to attack for 3 here for sure. Okay, opponent is able to get their Fable down first. And we have Cut Down plus a Bankbuster draw. It may end up being better to do that than to just slam our own Fable. I actually like having more options here, so let's see what they do with this Fable. That way our Graveyard Trespasser really hits. And I actually think we have to kill the token. So that way they don't get the Saga down onto the battlefield. So we'll take the 3 here. Let's redraw off of the Bankbuster no matter what they do. Could end up just cracking the blood, which we'd be fine with. It just ends up using their mana. Could also have been trying to dig for that 5th land, considering that we killed the Goblin token. But they actually had the 5th land. So maybe a little bit unfortunate that they actually ended up discarding one of their tap lands. But we'll go ahead and draw here off the Bankbuster. Could also just have like a artifact destruction spell here. We would love like a Boseiju because obviously we'd be able to get some value off of it by ramping. Let's get this Corpse Appraiser down, exiling their Titan Industry. We'll get a redraw here. Let's get rid of this Titan. And we'll be able to pretty much get a good card from the top of our deck. I actually think we want land here. It is a little bit awkward because we're getting rid of two really good creatures. But I actually don't mind it, and I still think that we're going to pass. I don't think getting aggressive with a Bank Buster is actually going to get us anywhere. Okay, going to get a Fable down here. Opponent, 4 cards. They do hit their 5th land, untapped. So let's go and see what they choose here. We're going to look at our hand. We do have an Invoke Despair, which is going to be pretty huge here. And they actually just get rid of the other Corpse Appraiser. I'm actually quite surprised about that. They don't have any good attacks. And let's see here. They don't have any creatures they can get back. Yeah, I think we still Invoke Despair. It just seems like the best thing to do here. So they're going to sacrifice that and sacrifice the Fable. I think that we can actually come in for 4 now. And pass the turn back. Obviously, our opponent's going to be able to pretty much get any card they want, which could even be like a Titan, which is kind of scary. But where we're at in the game, we're looking pretty good right now. We would like another Invoke. Or potentially like an Infernal Grasp as like insurance. Even like a Make Disappear to be able to counter their spell here. Okay, potentially just making a 4/4 dragon, I would think. Okay, they're actually going to discard any number of cards and redraw, so... Okay, they get another Titan into the graveyard. That's the only card they can really get. Outside of the Blood Tide. Wow, we actually hit both of the cards that we pretty much need here, so... Let's get this Graveyard Trespasser down. We'll go ahead and exile their Titan of Industry. And then we'll deal our opponent 3 points of damage here. Yep, we don't want to just use the Bank Buster yet. We kind of want to bluff the fact that we were just going to use the Bank Buster, excuse me. And we'll go and pass it back. That way we can just use this Make Disappear if they end up trying to... Yeah, that's fine. Yep. And let's get one of these Xander's Lounges. We could have redrawn, I guess, off of it and still got an untapped land, but I think that's okay. And let's see, so they're just going to get... Okay, our Corpse Appraiser, and they get a 4/4 dragon, which is pretty good. So they're going to get to redraw. Opponent does have 4 cards now, so definitely in a bit of trouble here. Especially considering they're able to get our Corpse Appraiser to get a good redraw here. And they have another Cruelty of Gix, but we're just going to counterspell that. And I don't think our opponent has any good attack here because our cards just came down. So we could blow this up. They're at 8. I think I would rather Fable here. And we get to hold up the Urtai. If they want to attack with the dragon, we're pretty happy about it. We have some pretty good threats on the battlefield right now. They have Cemetery, Desecrator. We're just going to counter that. With our Urtai here. Yep, just going to counter that. Opponent has 2 mana, so they could still have another play here potentially. So this leads me to believe that they do have a removal spell because that's a really aggressive play. Wow, yeah, they're just going to go for the attack and concede. So we were definitely able to grind them out quite a bit there with what we had going on. I think that we want to bring in a Hearse. The negates are looking pretty good, same as the Disdainful Stroke. Rona's Vortex is just okay. I think the Voltage Surge is fine. We may even want to cut down on a cut down. Underdog is value, but I don't necessarily like it. We can cut a Bloodtithe Harvester, the Underdog, a Make Disappear, and maybe we bring in the second Shieldred as kind of just like a catch-all. maybe we only keep one of these and bring in the other Infernal Grasp. And let's see here. May have wanted the Soul Transfer because it's just like an exile spell. We definitely have a little bit of a slow hand, but I think I can keep it. We have all the cards we need to cast our spells, and we have two really good cards, specifically one that kind of goes against their strategy a bit, so I don't mind keeping this hand, seeing where it goes. And let's go and see what our opponent's up to here. So they ended up taking a mulligan. Wow, yeah, that was just like a really good draw. So we hit Bankbuster, going to start off again with Sanders into the Springs, into Bankbuster. And then probably play the Fable first because we really wanted them to put their cards in the graveyard so that the Graveyard Trespasser gets the maximum value and we're just able to disrupt their main strategy of reanimating. They could also have cut some of their reanimation cards, but it's also less likely considering that Gix by itself, the Saga, is really good. And they have a Fable, that's fine. We can actually play our own Fable here. We'll pass it back. They have an Infernal Grasp if need be. So, okay, so they didn't hit a creature in the graveyard, so that's really good for us. They also did get rid of a land. They're going to attack. I think we make that trade, even though we would also be at 5 mana next turn. Maybe we just take it. I don't really like giving them too many treasures, don't get me wrong, but okay, they're just going to Elder Dragon and just kill the cards anyways. So, I mean, I think that's kind of fine. They ended up having to waste that on the tokens. Either way, they would have gotten the treasures, so all that we really took was an extra 2 points of damage. Definitely going to discard some cards here to the Fable. Okay, opponent has a Duress. They're going to take a point of damage. Let's see. So we get to discard 2 cards here. Let's get rid of these. We do hit Invoke Despair, which I really, really like here. So let's play the Haunted Ridge. And they actually don't have anything in the graveyard just yet. So we could bounce Fable, but I don't like that. Let's play the Graveyard Trespasser. It's a bit awkward because we don't really have many good targets. Yeah, there's not even any real good targets here. And then I'm just going to go ahead and start beating down with this Bankbuster. We have this Invoke Despair to keep the pressure going next turn. And in all honesty, I think where the game's at, we have to play with the cards that we have right now, rather than necessarily maybe thinking about what we're going to top deck or like what our opponent's going to do. And they do have a Cruelty of Gix here. So they're actually going to look at our hand, but we just have an Invoke Despair that we're actually going to get to cast right now. So they have to sacrifice their Reflection. And then probably the Elder Dragon War, I would think. We draw an Urtai, which is pretty good. Let's go ahead and crew and smash in for 4, put them down to 10. So they don't have any cards to get back, but they could go get a card right now. That would be really good. They cannot cast Titan. We have Urtai to kill Shieldred if that's a card that we end up seeing here. On top of that, the Urtai can actually crew the Bankbuster. Okay, so they have Inferno here, so they're pretty much having to get rid of most of their cards. And they're going to kill that. Luckily, we have Urtai to counterspell the ability. Let's play the Coast and pass the turn back. So we're just going to use Urtai to counter this. And we'll go ahead and counter this ability here. You can definitely see how powerful Urtai is. They pretty much just lose their Saga, kind of lose a lot of their value there. And they're going to go ahead and kill the Urtai, which pretty much means that it kills our Bankbuster, I believe. So we're just going to redraw here. Wow, that's a great draw. We hit Corpse Appraiser to actually get rid of the Titan. So even though our opponent's actually getting rid of a lot of our value, we're still hitting some cards here that are just phenomenal later in the game. And on top of that, the Graveyard Trespasser is kind of just icing here. So let's get rid of this Titan, get a good redraw into the Shieldred. I actually think it's worth it to play this untapped just to actually cast the Shieldred. So we're going to take a point of damage, but I think that's okay. Pass the turn back, opponent goes down to 5. They're still 2 mana away from being able to cast a Titan. Okay, but they just have the Terra Sunder here. So unfortunately they didn't put a stop on their upkeep. They're at 5, and we just invoke Despair for the win. We'll go ahead and see you in the next match. Playing some more Grixis Invoke here on the ladder. Let's see if we can keep the ranking up going. And we're actually going to be on the play, so that's fantastic. And I think our hand's pretty keepable here. A little bit awkward because our lands do come into play tap, but I don't really think we can say no to pretty much a pretty decent hand with some good cards overall on it. Let's go ahead and play this Rafine's Tower tapped. I think we're fine with that. These Haunted Ridges are going to come into play untapped anyways. And I think we have to start off with a Fable here. Looks like our opponent has their own Blood Tithe Harvester. I think I'm pretty fine with that because if we get the Fable... Ooh, we actually have Cut Down. Yeah, I actually think that's a better tempo play. So let's cut their creature down and then we play our own Blood Tithe Harvester. So now if they Fable, we actually can kill their token and play Shieldred, which means that their redraws from the Fable get to deal them a lot more damage. And we're up against a Mardu deck here because they just played a white land, and it looks like they have Graveyard Trespasser, so not really going to be able to kill that, unfortunately, but we do draw a land here. And we're definitely going to crash in for some damage, be more aggressive here. Very less likely that they block with the Trespasser, and let's just slam the Shieldred and pass the turn back. Let's see if they have an answer here for our Shieldred. Not yet. They go down to 14. And they have their own Shieldred. Pretty surprising here. Can't attack, so... yeah, we're pretty much just canceling each other out here. And I think that we have to play a Fable plus the Underdog. And we could trade Shieldreds here. Do they have another one? They didn't have a removal spell. I think we just pass here. It's a little bit awkward, but we're kind of just trading off the Shieldred's abilities here. They do have 4 cards, so it could be likely that they do have a removal spell, like I said, for like our Shieldred, but I think these are all like chances I'm willing to take. Alright, let's see. So they might just crack the blood. Maybe dig deeper. It does gain them life, but it gets canceled out. Ooh, but they did have a removal, so... yeah, fortunately, looks like it would have been better to just attack with the Shieldred there. I don't think that that's a good attack, and they're not going to make it. So... we got to get rid of the Shieldred here. And luckily, we're going to lose a ton of life here, but let's kill the Shieldred. And I'm going to make a treasure. Let's see, they probably trade. Maybe they block. They have a Rite of Oblivion. Yeah, I think I attack with the Underdog here. If they want to trade, we're pretty fine with that. Because it also means that it's going to be out of Rite of Oblivion range because the Rite of Oblivion's sorcery. And yeah, I think we pass. They could sack, let's see, non-land permanent. So they could sack like their Fable to get rid of our Fable. Or, I mean, in order for them to use this plus the fresh creature that they play, they need like another 2-drop. And they're actually going to attack because we have the Underdog, so that's fine. We'll just make the trade here. I don't mind that. We're going to have a reflection next turn. We can crack this blood token. Obviously, it's going to be rough if our opponent kind of has like a really big play here, but... Okay, and they actually do have the Invoke Despair, so let's get a redraw here. Okay, and we had a Blood Tithe Harvester, so unfortunately we are going to lose both of our good cards. And our opponent still has a card in the graveyard. We're going to play a Blood Tithe Harvester here. We do have a cut down for the Fable when it flips over. So, just a little bit unfortunate. Our opponent's definitely just getting a lot more value than we are right now. And they even have a Bank Buster here, so a bit rough for sure. They hit a Blood Tithe Harvester. So, they can't Rite of Oblivion yet. We're just going to kill this card. And unfortunately, this Bank Buster is definitely going to put in some work for our opponent. A really good draw here, though. Corpse Appraiser. Let's play that. Let's exile their Shieldred. And we're looking for like an Invoke, but we do end up getting a Corpse Appraiser, which is fine. Let's kill their Blood Tithe Harvester here. And we'll pass the turn back. So we have another Corpse Appraiser here, which is really good. It'll definitely get us a redraw. We're definitely looking for our own Invoke Despairs. Fortunately, our opponent is also playing a grindy strategy as well, and it looks like, you know, they're getting a lot of the cards that they're looking for right now. So we'll definitely see how this game ends up turning out. And let's see, so they're just going to straight up use the Bank Buster now, which could potentially mean they're not really hitting good cards. It also spends their mana. So they play a Fable, which pretty okay with that. They have 2 mana available. Should be able to attack with our Corpse Appraiser here. Okay, Blood Tithe Harvester. Yeah, I'm still going to attack with it, I think. And, yep. Yeah, I don't really want to get rid of that. That's actually pretty... It's okay. It's not the best draw this late, I don't think, but there is a chance that we tie up their mana here. We hit an Urtai. I think we just take that because it's just more of a better value card. And I'm definitely swinging here. If they want to trade, I'm pretty happy with that. And they do. We already got a value we wanted off the Corpse Appraiser. Let's go ahead and pass the turn back. We can also discard this Make Disappear to the Blood token, but I really want to see what our opponent does and how they use their mana. They could end up trying to do like the Bank Buster main phase. And they just have a Rite of Oblivion here. So let's see. We can't really counter it with the Urtai or the Make Disappear, so kind of just have to let that go. And yeah, I'm going to counter that one. So they can't crew the Bank Buster here. They just hit us for 2. They do get to make a treasure, which means that they'll be able to redraw with the Bank Buster, unfortunately. This Urtai isn't the best draw right now either, mostly because they're going to get a redraw. But it's kind of like all that we got right now, so definitely got to hope for that. And they're going to use the last ability this time on the Bank Buster, get a token and a treasure. We'll pass the turn back. Luckily, we have a blood token to be able to discard the swamp to get a redraw. Opponent has 3 cards left here. Yep, gonna crew. And before we even go to attacks, I'm going to try to cast this Urtai. And we'll go ahead and blow it up. Obviously, Fable's a problem too, but I don't mind just doing this. And if they end up attacking with the Goblin, we just trade in here. Yep, just going to go ahead and block. And unfortunately, they do have a Wandering Emperor. Let's go ahead and just get a redraw here with the Swamp to see if there's actually anything that we could draw here that's going to be good. Opponent's definitely just accruing a ton of value right now. Alright, so we hit a Graveyard Trespasser. That's not bad. It definitely gains us life. They're going to put a counter on the Goblin token. And unfortunately, the Goblin token actually attacks through our cards here as well, the Trespasser. Okay, another Reckoner Bank Buster. So our opponent just has tons of value. We're pretty much drawing 1 card a turn, and it's a land. So let's go ahead and move on to game 3 here. We may want this Infernal Grasp here. Let's get rid of, or excuse me, game 2. Sorry about that. Felt like we were playing against the same thing as the previous match. I think we want the Shield Dreads. Let's bring in the Negates, the Disdainful Strokes. Do we want the Abrades? I think we do. And let's see, what would we want to cut? We can cut a Tenacious Underdog. Voltage Surge and Rona's Vortex aren't really going to cut it. I think one Urtai is fine. Like, them redrawn just kind of bad. Can we cut a Blood Tithe? Let's see. Maybe we cut the Blood Tithe Harvesters? A Blood Tithe and a Cut Down. Or we can cut 2 Cut Downs. Yeah, I actually think that's better because Cut Down isn't always going to line up with like Graveyard Trespassers or potentially some other things that our opponent could have. So we are already bringing in removal. I think it's okay to just cut a removal spell that's a little bit more specific. Going to be on the play. Unfortunately, we cannot keep this hand. We don't have any red mana. This is way better. The cut down's nice, but I think I'll take the Infernal Grasp because it's just a hard removal spell. Obviously, we could play the cut down early as well, but in reality, we're just going to play this tap, so we're still going to have the mana that we'd need for the Grasp if you wanted to do the tempo play. And I think we just play Tukanuma here and pass back. Potentially just killing whatever 2-drop they play if they end up playing one. Pretty likely that they do go for the Blood Tithe Harvester here. Oh wow, they just have Duress. So the Fable's going to go to the graveyard for sure. Not really much of an option there, I believe, for my opponent. And let's get this Graveyard Trespasser down because essentially it's a card that is a little bit more hard to deal with. It's just going to be a 2-for-1 no matter what. Sizable body. Kind of like everything that we need right now. Okay, opponent does have the wedding announcement, so they're definitely going to start accruing some value here. We have a couple of Disdainful Strokes, so we're just going to start attacking with this Graveyard Trespasser and, pretty much accumulating some damage here. Let's pass it back. We have a 4-4 now. Opponent plays their own Graveyard Trespasser. There's not any cards for them to really exile. Yeah, they can get rid of that. That's fine. They're actually going to attack. Let's see. That's fine. I think I'm just going to discard one of these Disdainful Strokes. It's a little bit awkward because obviously we only really have one card left, but I'm putting the ball in my opponent's court, letting them know, hey, let's see here. Do we have anything over here? Nope. It's like, do you want to block this Graveyard Glutton or just keep taking the damage? I think this is a block scenario now. And then we also have Blood Tithe Harvester. So the second Disdainful Stroke is going to be really huge, especially if our opponent doesn't really have like a follow-up play. Obviously, them flipping this over and getting extra tokens a bit annoying, but right now I think we're looking pretty good with just having like a counterspell that's going to get rid of their best card pretty much. Looks like they could have a removal spell for the Graveyard Glutton, which would be unfortunate. Yeah, they do. So we're not really able to stop that from happening, but Blood Tithe Harvester, pretty decent clock here. And they're going to get one more token. It's a 2-2. We hit a Sulphurous Springs. Let's go ahead and I think that we just pass. We may have wanted to blood that away, but I also like having mana for Invoke here. Yep, going to get another Blood Tithe themselves. It's a 4-3. And they're going to attack. We have to take it for now. So opponent mana screwed. So our Disdainful Strokes are actually looking a lot worse right now. We hit a negate. Can't really kill the Blood Tithe. Just have to block it. So a bit awkward. May have wanted to get rid of the stroke, but really worried about what they could be having here. And we just have a negate. Not really going to let them take the Disdainful. It's a little bit better. And unfortunately, they do have the bank busters, so we're not really able to counter that. I think that we let that resolve. We block this Blood Tithe Harvester if they attack with it. Okay, just 2 damage. We take that. Rite of Oblivion is also just inevitability, so we're definitely in a position where even if we hit one of our good cards, the Rite of Oblivion can pretty much just blow us out. Alright, well, we do hit the Invoke Despair. So I think we definitely just play that first. They're gonna... Let's see. Oh, we actually don't have quadruple black, so we're kind of just like in a really bad spot here. We can get rid of the Rite of Oblivion, which I like. So let's do that. And I don't think that we can attack. Yeah, getting rid of that Disdainful Stroke is, you know, could end up biting us here. Especially if they finally hit their 4th land drop. Okay, they're just going to use their Blood Tithe Harvester on ours, which we're pretty happy about. And if they end up trying to kill the Graveyard Trespasser, they're going to have to use 2 cards, but it looks like it's going to be a Rite of Oblivion. Oh no, it actually ends up being a Soul Transfer. That's still really good. Because essentially they're discarding a card, but they're kind of switching it out for the Blood Tithe Harvester. Ooh, no black mana yet. Really need that 4th black for this Invoke Despair here. Let's get rid of... Let's see... Wow, I really want to take this other Invoke, but it's got to be the land here. And we're really hoping that our opponent doesn't have like another Duress or any kind of discard effect here. 2 cards. They did hit their 4th land. Here's a Blood Tithe Harvester, which is really good. And they still have the Bank Buster, which draws them more cards as well, unfortunately. But we are going to get a little bit of a boost here from this Invoke Despair ourselves. Let's go ahead and do it now. Unfortunately, got to take a point of damage, but they're going to sacrifice the token, the Wedding Announcement, and we'll get a redraw here into the Fable. I think we pass. They could crew a Bank Buster, so we're going to redraw. Yeah, I'm not really sure what happened. I mean, we didn't hit our 4th black for the Invoke Despair, which would have been a lot better earlier. It really looks like our opponent's deck kind of just like outvalued us, considering they have like Wedding Announcement. And yeah, we just didn't hit our Invoke on time. So they're just going to kill this Corpse Appraiser. That's fine. And they even still have mana to activate the Bank Buster. But let's go ahead and get these Fables down on the battlefield. And potentially try to accrue some value here. Let's go ahead and just pass a turn. We have a Xander's Lounge that we can use to redraw. Yep, just going to pass it back. So opponent's still drawing lots of cards off this Bank Buster. Eventually they'll be able to get the token from it. And yeah, they just have the Angel of Wrath, so really, really powerful card here. Opponent's just accruing lots and lots of value. They're going to go and shoot down one of the goblins. And let's see if they attack. I actually think we just block here. I don't want to just take some damage, and we're not really using this goblin for anything. They have a 3/4 lifelinker that we really have to kill pretty soon here. Let's get rid of this Xander's Lounge for a redraw. Okay, we hit Disdainful Stroke. Stroke might be a little bit late, but we could also get like an Infernal Grasp here off of this Corpse Appraiser. So let's get rid of Blood Tithe Harvester here on our opponent's side. So we do hit a Graveyard Trespasser, but I actually don't even think we can play it because we'd rather hold up this Disdainful Stroke. Yeah, definitely a bit awkward. Their Fable's going to flip over. So it kind of just felt like this game, we kind of just drew things in like a little bit of like an awkward order. And they are going to draw a card here. Yep. Get their token. Come in for 3 in the air. And these Disdainful Strokes potentially would have been better in game 1, but in game 2, looks like our opponent's kind of just Not really playing expensive cards, which we would love. And there's actually no creatures left, right? Do we have a Corpse Appraiser to gain life off of? Yeah, I think we still do it. Yeah, let's get rid of this wedding announcement and our Corpse Appraiser. Let's just at least gain a life. We have a decent attack here with this. Try to get our opponent down to 13. And let's pass a turn. I really would like Blood Tithe Harvester, but we're actually going to, if our Fables survive, then we're actually going to be able to get them down next turn. So they are going to get to Archangel of Wrath. We'll go down to 3. Obviously, like, our way to win this game is definitely, like, decreasing, but we're not out of it just yet. Yep, gonna attack for 6, put me down to 3. And let's see what their last card is. If they have, like, an Invoke, it's gonna be really rough for us here. And they have the black mana with the treasure. Okay, they're just gonna play another Archangel, and we can just Disdainful Stroke it. So that way that does not resolve. Opponent's tapped out. And that's going to go away. I think they still only played 1 spell. Okay, so things are looking pretty good now. I think we're at 3, but we're able to copy the Glutton. Let's exile the Archangel. And unfortunately, we don't have any more creatures, so let's get rid of something from their graveyard, the Soul Transfer. So we'll gain a life, go up to 4. Let's go ahead and copy the Blood Tithe Harvester. Get another blood token. Let's kill the Angel of Wrath. We'll go ahead and attack with the copy of the Glutton, exiling the other Angel and a Fable. We'll go back up to 5 here. And our opponent probably takes it. They're a pretty high life that it's not really going to be too relevant there. And let's go pass it back. So unfortunately we do lose both of our tokens, but we have quite a good amount of creatures on the battlefield right now. That definitely help us out. Probably going to have to block with the Corpse Appraiser, I believe. It's not really generating us a crazy amount of value right now. Ooh, but unfortunately opponent does have another Archangel of Wrath, so they can actually shoot us down. Okay, it looks like they'll go for the Blood Tithe Harvester and us, so they'll put us to 3. And then they can actually reanimate or copy the Angel, and then that's actually going to be GG. So, unfortunately, our opponent did just have lots more value than we did, but for a while there, it actually looked like we might have been able to turn the game around. Let's go and see how our next match goes. Playing some more Grixis here on the ladder. Going to be on the draw to start the match, and it does look like we have to take a mulligan here because we only have 1 mana to be able to cast our spells. This hand is a little bit awkward. We do have to go down to 5 here. I think this is definitely a keepable 5. Let's put back the Tenacious Underdog, and I think it has to be the Blood Tithe Harvester. The Bankbuster is going to draw some cards, hopefully. So let's see if that definitely ends up being the play here. And our opponent has their own Blood Tithe Harvester. And we actually have a Voltage Surge for that. I think we'd rather play our Bankbuster first. That way we can start drawing some cards off of it. Obviously, if our opponent has like a way to get rid of this, it's going to be definitely problematic. Going to take 3 damage here. And potentially they have... Okay, yep, Fable. And let's see here. So we can play Shivan Reef or maybe Takenuma, because Takenuma doesn't deal us damage. Either way, we don't have to take the damage. Let's go pass back. We can shoot down this Blood Tithe Harvester and then use the Bankbuster's ability. So yeah, just going to shoot this down. May have been better to maybe kill the card that's generating more mana, but I really don't want to see that Blood Tithe Harvester here. So let's redraw as well. Try to see if we can hit something good. So we hit our own Blood Tithe Harvester here. We're going to take 2 damage, go down to 15. And they do have a Corpse Appraiser, so they're actually going to get rid of the 1 creature in the graveyard here. So we are not going to be able to use our Graveyard Trespasser, and they do actually get a redraw. They have 4 cards in hand. And we do draw our own Corpse Appraiser, but it is not doing anything right now. And it's definitely going to be a grinding game here. We're definitely going to be grinding out quite a bit. Let's go ahead and play a Blood Tithe Harvester, I believe, because we still get to use the Bankbuster. And we'll go... they might end up having a counterspell like a Make Despair, considering that they had a stop there. And we will end the turn. We may actually want to like crew the Bankbuster with this to make a good block. And we need to find an answer for this Fable ASAP, or else it's going to start to take over the game. And let's go ahead and crew. If they have a removal spell, they have a removal spell. We can still redraw a card here off of this Bankbuster. It looks like they have an Infernal Grasp potentially for it. If they had a damage spell, I wouldn't mind it. Ooh, but they actually just have the good damage spell, which is going to be this Voltage Surge. So let's get a redraw here. We are going to take 5, go down to 10, unfortunately. We top deck a cut down, which is great. Going to be able to kill the Reflection. We hit another cut down, so let's just kill this now. Let's see. There's no creatures on that side, and there's no creatures on this side. So, let's see. Fable isn't going to just do it. I think we have to play Sulphur Springs and the Graveyard Trespasser. We're going to have to take some damage, I think, here to kill the Goblin Shaman if it gets to that. Ooh, opponent does have Evelyn. We do not have an answer for that, I don't think. So let's see here. Yeah, nothing really in the graveyard. We can just get rid of that. Let's actually shrink the Evelyn and then kill it with the cut down. Obviously, it's really awkward. I mean, we're at 9 life here, but I think we have to get rid of their best value card. We're like almost forced to have to block with the Graveyard Trespasser here. We do have a life gain. Opponent's just at 19. Yeah, I think we can go down to 6. It's definitely close. Okay, they just have another Corpse Appraiser here. And they're going to mill some cards so they get something that they want. We have an Urtai, which is pretty decent. Still can't really attack because the 3/3 on their side is going to trade with our value 3/3. Do they just have a counterspell here? If they do, it's going to be a bit rough. Yeah, it's looking like a Make Disappear. Yep. So we definitely have to block here. Or we could attack, but then we'd only just go to 6. So let's pass a turn, see if our opponent just has a removal spell for the Trespasser, or maybe even like a Invoke Despair, which would pretty much just end the game outright. So we do have to block, not really getting any life here. 2 cards left. I think we'll untap. Corpse Appraiser isn't bad. Let's play it. Try to read all something good here. Go down to 1. And unfortunately, our opponent doesn't have Evelyn. I mean, we're just dead here. We only have one blocker. So our opponent definitely was able to just grind us out there. We're in the mirror match here. I think we want 2 Disdainfuls. And maybe some negates here. Make disappear is fine. Cut down was okay. Tie, I don't really think we want all of them. And let's get rid of an underdog. Could bring in some soul transfers, knowing that they get cards back, or maybe even the hearse, because we can kind of keep their graveyard at a minimum. But then that would mean that they're just going to use the Corpse Appraiser on our graveyard anyways. Let's bring in the other Shieldred. Let's get rid of this Make Disappear. Let's get rid of the Rona's Vortex, Voltage Surge. I think I like both of these soul transfers. Just as much removal as we can get. Might have been an argument for the Bankbuster, knowing that it's probably going to show up. So it might have been a mistake not bringing it in. We do have the Infernal Grasp to deal with it if it becomes a creature. So going to be on the play here. I actually think this hand's pretty good. We can definitely keep it. Unfortunately, we're going to have to take some damage from the Shivon Reef, but I think that's okay. We have a negate plus a Fable follow-up. So we can potentially already start the tempo game here. And opponent does have a Bankbuster, but luckily we got this negate here for it, so no card draw for our opponent here. Let's go ahead and play this Fable. We are going to take a point of damage here. Either way, even if we played the Springs, we had to. And it looks like our opponent has their own Fable. And we hit a Bankbuster, so let's discard. Let's see, the Sulphurous Springs and the Xander's Lounge. Let's try to get some good cards. So we just hit another Shipwreck March. Bit unfortunate that we're not really hitting our red mana. I'm going to attack to see if they want to trade tokens. They actually do not. So we could get back a creature from our graveyard. Let's play Bankbuster. Plus, we're going to have to take a damage for this Blood Tithe, which is fine. And we'll pass it back. So we can still trade with the Goblin token if we really wanted to, or we can even Bankbust if our opponent ends up spending their mana on their turn. There are no creatures in the graveyard, so Corpse Appraiser isn't necessarily going to do it. We actually have a pretty good amount of damage coming in next turn, especially if the Fable gets to flip over. We've got value with the Bankbuster. Soul Transfer gets back any card that we need. So snapping off the Blood Tithe on the Goblin token is probably the right play. Okay, they have another Fable. So they're tapping out. Let's see if they actually attack. It's less likely considering we have a Bankbuster. Unless they really wanted a treasure. And as weird as it is, I'm actually just going to crack this Blood. I just don't want the Shipwreck Marsh. I got to hit some cards that are going to give me some gas. So, yep. And we hit another Bankbuster. This is going to flip over. We could try to draw off of the Bankbuster. Trespasser. Yeah, let's play Trespasser because we get rid of their Siphon Insight here. I really like that play. We can also just attack for treasure here. Potentially trading with one of their cards, and then we can just redraw off the Bankbuster, which I really like. So let's pass a turn here. Not going to cast this other Bankbuster, but rather just start drawing cards off of the one that we have in play. And this is also going to flip over for them. They're going to get a card filter here. They get rid of 2 lands. So opponent up to 5 cards, 4 cards now with the land drop. And really hoping to untap with this Reflection here. If not, we have the Soul Transfer, which would then make the Graveyard Trespasser a really good attacker here. Could also try to like crew the Bankbuster to get them to use a removal spell on it. I think I'd be okay with that. I'd rather them do that than the Reflection, right? So then we can start copying all of our cards. I think that's pretty good. So let's see how they attack. They're not going to. Let's crack that treasure. Draw a card off the Bank Buster. Opponent may have a response. They actually did not. So I'm going to exile the reflection. Hold on, we can actually do both, right? Card. But there's no creature card in our graveyard. There is not. Is it worth it is the question. To like copy it, kill both of them, and then we soul transfer. But then we wouldn't be able to soul transfer on this turn. We just play another Graveyard Trespasser. I think I'm kind of okay with that. Let's actually just copy this now. It's a little bit of like a weird play. Okay, so we're going to get the blood maybe. Yep. So let's actually kill this reflection now. We'll go ahead and kill the token. We're going to attack for 4. Just get rid of some cards in their graveyard. I want to keep the Blood Tithe Harvester. We'll get to deal them 4 damage. And I'm actually going to try to play another one here. It's probably a pretty high chance that they just have like a make disappear, but at least it'll just go out of their hand. And they actually let it resolve. So there is a world where maybe they just meat hook us here, which would definitely be quite painful because we pretty much lose most of our board, but we would also still have Bank Buster. Okay, so opponent going for Evelyn here. And, ooh, they do hit an Infernal Grasp, which is really good. It's going to kill our reflection. Their reflection is going to flip over. So we're not going to have an enchantment anymore to get back this Blood Tithe Harvester, which is obviously a bit disappointing, but we have a lot going on right now. I mean, I would almost rather kill the Evelyn. Maybe they just wait. Could just play the Swamp, probably, and then they still have like 5 cards left. Okay, they're just going to Infernal Grasp now. That's fine. Definitely fine with that. Ooh, Liliana's really good, though. So let's see what they do here. Yeah, I'm just going to crew. I actually think I don't mind just losing the Bank Buster here. It's a little bit weird because obviously the Bank Buster is giving us card draw. But we are going to have a pretty big turn here. We don't have an enchantment, but that's fine. Card. Yeah, let's go ahead and just exile the Evelyn. That way our opponent doesn't have any more value. Let's actually attack our opponent here. My graveyard. Do we just want to get rid of the Blood Tithe? I think getting rid of the Blood Tithe for just some extra damage is fine. Let's get rid of their card. I like this because it puts them on a 2-turn clock. And we can just play this Bank Buster. So let's see what they got. I mean, they got a Liliana. We're going to lose this Blood Tithe Harvester for sure. They got to untap with this Reflection, which is quite dangerous. Okay, they have a Blood Tithe Harvester, making a blood token. So yeah, unfortunately, we are going to lose both of our Graveyard Trespassers here. They are going to tap out. And they do have to discard 2 cards, though, if they want to do this. I believe we're going to lose our our Blood Tithe Harvester as well. Yep, gonna uptick here. We can crew the Bank Buster with the other Trespasser. Opponent with 2 cards left. They're actually choosing not to do anything with the Liliana. So I'm gonna go for lethal. Let's kill the Blood Tithe Harvester. We'll play our own Blood Tithe. Let's crew the Bank Buster here. And we're going to try to come in for lethal. And our opponent concedes game 2. So we're going to go and move on to game 3. Definitely a grindy game. And it actually looks like our opponent's going to give us the win for the match. They were definitely Not really feeling the grind there, but yeah, this deck is just really, really powerful. All right, here for the post-game wrap, and as you can see, this deck definitely likes to grind, but on top of that, there's a lot of powerful things going on. Like, not only is Invoke Despair the kind of just like end-all be-all game finisher in this deck, you actually just have so much grindy value between the Trespassers, the Appraisers. You actually just end up drawing so many cards. I mean, the Bankbuster by itself is just such a good card advantage engine. And overall, like I said earlier, I mean, in my opinion, I think this is definitely one of the top 3 decks in the format. I mean, we've definitely already seen it top 8 in our standard events. So if you're looking for something to play this Sunday, I 100% recommend a deck like this. If you really like the Invoke Despairs, then yeah, this is definitely the deck list for you. I think like you want to get as many reps with a deck like this because there's definitely so many lines, and you also want to get used to like what your opponent's doing to know when you need to discard certain things or when you need to cast certain spells at that time. But overall, I think it's one of the best decks in the format. I definitely recommend it. You're not going to regret crafting it. I definitely hope that you enjoyed the video if you made it this far. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell notification, like, and leave a comment down below. Definitely sign up for our tournaments, 3 a month that we have that are free to play with cash prizes, like I said earlier. Standard this weekend. All these links, including links to my content as well, in the description below. And I hope that you stay cheesy.